mainly you're talking trolleys on these neighborhood tours. If anybody here has a 3-day pass, very important. If you have a 3-day pass, which will last you until Friday, if the Blackhawks win tonight, that's what they do. The tours are canceled on Friday because of the parade. We can't do any tours. So if you have a 3-day pass, it won't work for you. Yeah, I bet you would be able to. I just need to check. I don't want to say yes until I know. So this really tall building here on the left-hand side is called the Aon Center. The Aon Center is the 3rd tallest building in Chicago. It's about 1,200 feet high, okay? Just short, almost 1,200 feet. Designed by Edward Durrell Stone. He happens to be the architectural pride of the state of Arkansas. The facade of this building is a North Carolina granite, but that wasn't always the case. It actually used to be marble when the building first went up.
I know already.
The problem is that the marble was falling off. Big problem when you're 1,200 feet high. Okay, so they had to replace it with the granite. That ended up being an $80 million project. But that was back when the Rockefellers owned this building. So, you know, what's $80 million to Rockefeller? That's the family reunion. Yes, ma'am. It was 144,000 pounds of marble. I didn't think. Huh? Oh, 144,000 pounds. I had no idea. I wonder how many pounds. Maybe it's 144,000 pounds of granite now, too. Beautiful knowledge. You know this city pretty well. No, you've given me some good clues so far. This is my favorite modern building up here on the right-hand side. Okay, it's called Aqua because it looks like moving water as you go by. Designed by Chicago's very own Jean Gang. We're quite proud of her. She's a brilliant architect. Last I checked, this is the tallest building to ever be designed by a female architect, unless something went up over the last year that I haven't heard about. But at least last year it was the tallest building to be designed by an architect, female architect, 865 feet high. Those wavy balconies, 8 actually, so we'll be over there in a little while. But you can see clearly from here the 3 levels that are on top. Those are their executive suites, one of which is the presidential suite. One of only 3 places in the city where a president can stay. There's one. The other is the Hyatt Regency right over here. And the 3rd is the Hilton. There's a mansion that sits on top of the Hilton in South Michigan. That's another place. And, well, then there's the 4th place right now, and that's only because our current president has a house on the south side. So, typically, there's only 4. For the time being, there is 3. We're about to head right into the Trump Tower. Stop number 2 is right in front of the Trump Tower. The Trump Tower designed by Adrian Smith, the same Adrian Smith that did the NBC Tower, same Adrian Smith that did Millennium Park. It's divided into 5 sections. The first 2 is the Trump International Hotel. The 3rd section is a mini office building. That 4th section would be the condos, and that small 5th section would be the penthouses. So it's a hybrid building, okay? Now I'm going to ask our manager here about that 3-day pass. They were trained by the great Daniel Rowe. And here's the cool thing about this building. That dome thing at the top, the windows and columns all around it, was Al Capone's office during his reign over the city of Chicago. This was the tallest building in town back in those days. Tallest building in the world outside of New York during those times. And so essentially that was the sky deck. Al Capone could see the entire city from up there during these times. Of course, it's not the case anymore. It's now the office of an architect named Helmut Jahn, and the building is well dwarfed by the other ones that are around it, so now you can no longer see the entire city. There used to be an elevator in this building that was large enough for Mr. Capone to drive his car onto, and the elevator would take him and his car all the way up to his elevator, all the way up to his office, so you wouldn't have to worry about finding a place to park, you know, not when you're Al Capone. Out here to the right, you got the IBM Plaza next to the Trump Tower, the last building ever designed by the great Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. It went up 6 months before his death, and he never got a chance to see it go up. And here's right across the street from me, you have what's known as Marina City, nicknamed the Corn Cob Towers, and I'm sure you can see why. Designed by Bertrand Goldberg, a prize student of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. So it's not that often that you get a chance to see student and teacher across the street from one another. But when you see it in Chicago, it's typically Van der Rohe and one of his students. So that's how you know he's number one, and then Boston's, and now ours. So that's the story of the L train. We're doubling up. You already saw the Marshall Field and Company building. What I didn't mention is that Marshall Field came to Chicago at the age of 21, and he lived in this store his first year here to save money. That was when it wasn't called Marshall Field then. It was called P. Palmer and Company, named after his mentor, Potter Palmer. Potter Palmer was so impressed with him that he eventually made him a part owner, and then when he retired, he sold the rest of the business to him, and that's when it became Marshall Field. That happens all the time. That's when it became Marshall Field and Company. And now it's Macy's, but Chicago is still calling Marshall Field. You got the Oriental Theater here, the Ford Center. This is one of the Broadway in Chicago theaters. You got 3 of them here. But I always tell folks, if you want to see good Chicago theater, don't go to Broadway in Chicago. If you want to go see Broadway, go to Broadway. Chicago is the 3rd largest theater district in the world, and we got 1,000 theater companies spread out all over the city with fantastic Chicago talent that you can visit. You go to see one of these shows, you're going to see New York people. And go to the Goodman. This is the finest theater in Chicago. Every actor in Chicago wants to be on that stage. County building and the west side is City Hall. They just split the building right down the middle. Over on the right-hand side is the State Building. That is the Thompson Center. And it's designed by Helmut Jahn. That's an architect that now occupies Al Capone's old office. Building made almost entirely of glass, which caused a bit of a problem, okay, when it first went up in 1985. Helmut Jahn, I'm sure, is a very smart guy, but he didn't think about this. It caused a greenhouse effect, all of that glass, to where when the building first went up, it got up to 85 degrees in there, even with the air conditioning on full blast. So what they had to do was color all that glass, install much more powerful air conditioning units, and then they took all the doors off of all the offices. So you don't have any privacy, but the air flows freely and no more greenhouse effect in there. The idea was to show the transparency of the state of Illinois government. We have far too many governors in jail or on their way for that to be the case. Speaking of lack of transparency, let's talk about City Hall. City Hall, we go up on the 6th floor, and you've got the office of our mayor, Richard M. Daley, who happens to be the son of our former mayor, Richard J. Daley. You head to the other side of the same building, 6th floor, the office of Cook County Board President Todd Stroger. He's the son of former Cook County Board President John Stroger. There's a lot of that going on here in Chicago. If you're looking to get involved in Chicago politics, it takes more than a great smile, a nice haircut, and some fresh ideas. It helps if you're already born into that clique that already is controlling things. Although the clique is in danger, okay? Todd Stroger has already lost his primary election, so we're starting to break up the nepotism a little bit here in Chicago. And actually, that sort of thing is kind of happening all over the country, where incumbents are starting to fall. The ones that weren't representing people properly. Here is the financial district of Chicago. This is our version of Wall Street. It is nicknamed the Canyon of Commerce. People also call it the shadiest street in Chicago for more reasons than one. I mean, you can call it that, talking about the credit default swaps and derivatives and whatever else you have happening on this street. But it's mainly called the shadiest street in Chicago because you only get 2 hours of sunlight on this street every day because of all the skyscrapers that you have here. Not only is this street shady, but it's also quite beautiful and very photogenic. This is a favorite. Let me sit down since you're taking pictures. This is a favorite of filmmakers. Filmmakers love to come out here and film the This street has been in at least 30 films. This street is Gotham City, by the way, okay? You thought Gotham City was a big sprawling city. No, it's this street. There's the Gotham City Bank. Down at the end of the block is the Chicago Board of Trade that you were asking about, sir. Designed by William Holliver and Martine Roche. And there's a statue on top of Ceres, the Greek goddess of agriculture and grain. And that statue has never been completed. Doesn't have a face or hands. Apparently, the artist was told by Holliver and Roche that the statue would be closer to the ground and then changed their mind. And then the artist got a little upset and said, you know, no one's going to appreciate my statue from on top of her roof. And so his way of getting back at those architects was by not finishing it. But little did he know that statue would show up in 30 to 40 films and you know, a dozen music videos. And I'm sure if he thought about that in 1918 or whatever it was when that happened, he probably would have finished it, but he didn't think that far ahead of time. So let's see, what do we have? We're past the Italian Village. That's the oldest Italian restaurant in Chicago. Even older than those restaurants out in Little Italy, for those of you that are just getting off the West Tour. Those restaurants. A really cool building up here on the right-hand side. That is the Inland Steel Building, okay? Designed by Walter Netsch and Bruce Graham. Bruce Graham, the guy that did the Sears Tower, but he was a young baby artificial field when it was called Palmer's. He had this hotel built and gave it to his wife as a wedding present. Interesting, right? Only problem is 2 weeks later, burned down in the Great Chicago Fire. So who knew? Along with the rest of, because Potter Palmer had more buildings up and down State Street. So Potter Palmer had the hotel built as well as the rest of State Street built on his own dime. Okay, and he eventually made all the money back and then some. Gave the new hotel to his wife. He said in the new at a traffic light, there seems to be a coach bus in our stop. And that has to stop right up at stop number 4. And if y'all out here have a fantastic day. So now it's after 4, so we're getting close to the end of the day, and let me explain how it works. This is mainly for folks that are getting off and plan on getting back on today, okay? If you're going to your final destination now, don't worry about what I'm saying. The last loop starts at 5 o'clock, okay? So what that means is, if you get on a bus after 5 o'clock, you're going to be subject to whatever the last stop is. Alright, so what that means is, if you're going to get off, and if you get on at 5:30, and you say, hey, I'm going to stop 14, and the driver says, well, I'm only going to stop 11. See what I mean? You might be on the wrong side of town. So, if you're getting off, this is your stop. Stop 4. If you're getting off and getting back on, make sure you're back on the bus stop by 4:45. If you have not seen the north end of Millennium Park yet, there it is. You got these two 50-foot tall glass brick towers known as the Crown Fountains, and they have faces on them. They have screens that project what's called the face of 1,000 Chicagoans, and the picture changes from time to time. When the fountain goes off, the water spouts out from betwixt the lips of the Chicagoans. So it's like being spat on by one of the 1,000 Chicagoans. There's the Art Institute of Chicago right there. Fabulous place, and definitely a fantastic museum. One of the best in the world, if you're interested in the French Impressionist style of art. But not only is it a museum, it is also a school, hence the name Art Institute. And some of the famous people that graduated from the Art Institute of Chicago would include Grant Wood, who did American Gothic, you know, that painting with the two old people in the pitchfork. Also Walt Disney and Jeffrey Combs and Hugh Hefner also graduated from the art. That's art from the Art Institute of Chicago. Stop by Art Institute if you happen up here.